Hopefully my internet doesn't conk out, because probably knowing my luck it will.
Right? All right. We are live. I've been having internet issues lately. I don't know what's going on. But we will keep our fingers crossed. We will be awesome tonight. I have an awesome guest with us today, and we have a really cool topic. Everyone say hi to Chantal. I am so excited. The pink hair, I'm all for this. This is awesome. Okay.
This is a brand new change for me. Normally I'm purple, so I'm like, ugh.
I know I was looking through some old pictures, and the one that Amanda posted of you was purple, and I was like, oh my God, that's a gorgeous color. Purple's like my favorite color.
Me too.
I'm all for it. And I've never dyed my hair, but my hair's pretty boring, so I live vicariously through the people who do.
Who do.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to take one quick second, give everybody a chance to hop on. I'm also going to post the live video here in the event so that everyone who RSVP'd can find us. I'm really excited for tonight's chat. We have an awesome guest, an awesome topic. If you guys are here, shout out, say hi, let us know where you are, what the weather's like. That's the question that I always ask. What is the weather like?
It's always different. It's always different.
Yeah, it's always fun to kind of see not only all the different places that people come from, because I think that's awesome too, but kind of the variations in the weather. So that's a fun one for me. All right, so I'm posting it in the group now. Perfect. Okay, so we have a fun-filled, serious discussion for today. This is a topic that I know a lot of yarnpreneurs have anxiety around. Whenever we talk about pricing, whenever we bring up pricing, it is a lot of times tied to our self-worth, to the way we view ourselves, to how confident we are about our products and our services and the things that we provide and the things that we sell. And I sometimes see people getting totally tripped up on this topic and either selling themselves short or just kind of engaging in practices that maybe aren't the best for their business, for their bottom line.
Yes.
So I wholeheartedly believe that this is the kind of stuff that we have to dive into, because it's not the kind of thing that you can just ignore and hope it goes away.
And be like, it doesn't matter. I don't need to actually price anything.
I don't need to actually make money. Or just kind of do the whole like dartboard, like I'll just pick a price and that's great. And then, you have to, so I believe that, everyone who wants to make it as a yarnpreneur, who wants to do this as, whether it's a small side business or part of their career, I believe that you should make money. You should be paid for your time and your effort and your talent.
Yes. And making money is not dirty.
Yes.
Like everyone has this idea, oh, I'm making money. No, right. That's why you're doing this. You're trying to make money.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that people believe because they enjoy what they do, right? Like, I'm getting enjoyment from this, I should also get paid. So I do think there is a little bit of that stigma of like, but I'm having fun. Don't pay me, I'm having fun.
But if you were still like, wouldn't you go to school for something that you enjoyed, that you have fun at, and then you would hopefully work in that industry and then get paid doing it?
Yeah, believe me, I'm all over that. I think that's fantastic. I'm going to take a few seconds here and just say hi to everyone who has checked in. I see Novella, Stephanie, Mary is in Canvas. It is a spring day. Awesome. We seem to skip spring here this year. It went from winter to summer, and there was no spring.
No in between.
No, we had 2 days of what was could have been considered spring. But yeah, it went straight for the hot weather.
Yeah.
But so where are you?
I'm in Calgary, Alberta. So most people associate me with the Stampede. Otherwise, I'm about 2 hours away from Banff. So I'm by the mountains.
Okay. Oh, so it's.
I'm also oil city.
Gotcha.
We're known for our oil and gas.
Interesting.
Not exactly crafts, but.
Hey, listen, someone's got to make a name for the craft industry in your area. Exactly. It might as well be you. Exactly. Let's see. Cassandra is in South California. Oh my God.
Jelly.
I'm so jealous. Okay.
I just want beaches. We have Canadian beaches, which are like pebbles, and that's it.
Well, see, people think, New Jersey beach, because I'm in New Jersey. New Jersey beaches are like, known around the world or whatever. It's like the only beach in the world that you have to like pay to get on. And they're good. They're what I grew up with. I grew up in Jersey. So, it feels very fantastic to me, but you go to beaches anywhere else and they're like so different. But it's pretty fun. We have halfway decent beaches. We have a lot of options. You got a lot of coastline and a lot of options depending on where you go, north or south. And I know Novella checked in. She's in California too. So yeah, a lot of California girls.
You lucky bees.
All right. Well, we're going to get started. As you guys check in, feel free to say hi. If you're watching on the replay, feel free to say hi too. This is a Q&A, so I'm going to ask a bunch of questions, but if you have any questions, please type them in as you think of them. I'm going to ignore the comments for a little while, just so that we can get some discussion in, and then I'll check back in with them and see where we are in a little bit. All right, so the first thing I would like to know. So tell us a little bit more about yourself and, how you got started in the handmade business and what kind of started you on this path.
Yeah, so I'm Chantal. I run Knitatude, as well as I am one of the ladies behind Why We See Girl Gang, which is like a kind of like an entrepreneur group, as well as one of the ladies behind Make Her Strong, which is like a fiber-based entrepreneur group.
Yeah.
But I started Knitatude in 2014, so 4 years ago, and I ended up picking up knitting, which I never would have thought that I would have actually gotten into. Just off of a whim, because I wanted for Christmas, I wanted a circle scarf, and I never got one, so I was pissed. So I was like, okay, I'll just go to Walmart, I'll just make my own, whatever it is, I'll go onto Pinterest. And I definitely, so when I'm talking about pricing, like, I have made all of these mistakes, and I have learned very quickly from them.
Yeah.
But Knitatude is 4 years old. I started originally making items, and then from there I just in the last 2 years have transitioned into pattern writing and designing. So now I make full garments. I've been really lucky to be able to work with people like Lion Brand and We Are Knitters. So it's like it's a whole new thing and a whole new ball game, because now I have to price myself. That is not like physical products.
Right.
Physical products to me are like piece of cake now, but when it comes to pricing myself, where I'm like, how much is a blog post worth? It's completely different for me. But yeah, 4 years, and I worked, I started selling items just online on Etsy. Then I started selling in markets. I've probably done over, I would say, 25 to 30 markets in the last 4 years.
Nice.
Anything ranging from like really small little craft shows to like big ones where you're paying like over $500 for a booth and you need to make that money back. But yeah, it's been a wild and adventurous ride.
That's awesome. I was stalking you a little bit. So I saw some of the dresses that oh my God, they were gorgeous. I was like,
I don't know any of my stuff now. That's so silly.
I've never seen a dress that I actually wanted to knit. But they're super cute, and I would totally wear them. So I would totally go through the effort of making an entire dress for that.
They take a long time, but honestly, I'm like, I hate seamless, I hate seams, so I do all seamless knitting, which means you're like in the round constantly, which means that they're way faster. I hate super small needles, like the smallest needle size that I probably use is
chunky.
Like 4. Yeah. And that was my issue as well, because I was like, there's so many cute things that I want to be able to like wear, but I don't want to purchase because I'm cheap. Yeah. Which is funny, because I think a lot of us, like, as crafters, we're like, oh, I'm so cheap for that, which we'll get into pricing as well. But I just thought it would be cool to be able to make stuff that, like, didn't look grandma-ish and kitschy and gross.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's the key to bring crochet and knitwear into this century is people like you bringing the designs to a modern level.
You're going to make me blush.
It'll match your hair.
It'll match my hair.
Awesome. So to start out in the pricing realm, why do you think it is that so many yarnpreneurs get stuck when pricing their products? Like, what do you think the main sticking point is there?
I think mainly it's because we've all undervalued our craft. One, it's like you have to figure out how much you are worth as a person, and by putting a number on a price tag, that determines how much you think you are worth. And I think that a lot of people undervalue themselves, and I think they undervalue their crafts, and I think that there's this whole stigma that, especially for knitting and crocheting, that it's just like, it's an old grandma art, and it should be pennies to pay for, when it's like, no, this is something that takes hours upon hours upon hours, and you need to really like stick up for yourself. And I think it's mainly self-worth. I think we all get a little bit nervous, and especially with being more of like a crafty craft, I think it can be looked down and like looked down upon, and then people just make that decision even farther.
Yeah, I would have to agree that I think a lot of it is perception, and I also think that sometimes people are afraid that if they price their work too high or too low, that the customer is going to form an opinion, and they don't want that opinion to be negative based on price alone.
Yes.
I think it's very often that it's thought of as customers will just look past the work to the price and form assumptions based on the price alone without really looking too closely at the product or the hard work that went into it or the person
And
behind it.
There's always going to be people like that.
Absolutely.
And those people are not your target audience. They're not your target customer, and they can just bug off, because
I think that's important. I think it's important for you to be able to say, you are not my customer. And obviously you're not going
to... People hate it. As soon as you tell them that, as soon as you say you're not my customer, people want to be like, oh, I'll prove you wrong. I am your customer. And then they're going to pay the amount of money that you want anyways. Yeah. And they're going to be like, you're a sucker. Like,
we had someone ask, I want to say, I have a terrible memory. I'm not going to remember who it was, but someone asked in the group a few days ago about, how do I respond to someone who said that they would buy it, but, for $20 cheaper. And, there were so many great answers that people gave, and I love
include the F word, because that would be usually my
some of them were edging close to that. I do think there's something to be said. It has a lot to do with your self-confidence and your self-worth. Like, no, I am not going to lower my prices just because you think it's easy to do this. I think that was what the customer said, that it was easy to do. And I'm like, well, then do it yourself.
Exactly. That's wonderful. You should come to a knit night. I would love to have you come to a knit night, and we can go through this whole entire thing. Did you know I sell patterns? Buy that.
Yeah. I do think there's a little bit of, you can definitely toe the line between, obviously you don't ever want to be rude or nasty to someone, but you can be, listen, like, this is who I am. This is what I do. These are my prices. This is what my work is valued at. You either value it or you don't. Yeah. No,
shoulders back. Chest high, look them in the eye. If you tell them your price, they're going to respect you for it. And if they don't, who cares?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Okay, so this kind of, ties into my next question. So why do you think it is so important for yarnpreneurs to price their work properly?
I think that it comes down to multiple things. I think we really need to elevate the stature of our craft. Again, I think that we've got this stigma where it's like handmade is cheap, and I think we really need to elevate that, and the only way that we're going to be able to do that is work together. I also think, I'm going to swear here, it's because you fucking deserve it. Like, you deserve it. And I think that there's so many people out there that many people don't make enough money, or especially when it comes to knitting, where they're like, I'm not going to be able to make enough money, and it's because you're not charging enough. You're not taking your prices into account and realizing that there's a lot of expenses that come into having a business that you have to pay for. So I definitely think that is one of the biggest struggles.
Yeah, I agree. I think, people, if you undervalue your work and your time, No, it's never going to work out. I mean, the definition of a business is you need to be making a profit. Like, you need to be making money.
Exactly. And I think that by not pricing correctly, not only is it hurting you because you are worth so much more, but it also is devaluing the craft for the rest of your people that want to either make a full-time business or want to actually make money from it. I think people forget that what they decide actually really affects how other people are. You look at someone like a Two of Wands or a Tony from TL Yarn Crafts, and you're like, how would that person like feel if all of a sudden they're selling something at $75 and you're selling the exact same product for $30? So it's like you're having to compete and you're creating competition. And not only are you creating competition that you may lose, but you're pissing off the other people in the community without even being you're like, I'll just be cheaper. And it's like, no, don't be cheaper.
I do agree on, the whole rising tide lifts all boats kind of thing.
Yeah.
If we as a community start clearly showing that we value our work a specific way, I think it's going to take time, and I think it kind of matters over the years. Things will kind of build up, but I do agree that it will help the community as a whole. All yarnpreneurs
Yes.
will kind of benefit from that. So I think
I totally agree.
I think that's fantastic. So we talked a bit about, kind of what yarnpreneurs can get stuck on, some of the kind of mental blocks that might come up when we're thinking about pricing our work. So can you walk us through your pricing strategy and kind of outline that for us?
So I have 3 formulas that I usually like to tote around. One of them I really think is good for yarnies or yarnpreneurs. The second one I think is really good for people outside of yarnpreneurs, which we should be aspiring to. And then the third that I absolutely freaking hate and I never want to see. So to kind of explain some of the language that I'm going to go through, I'm going to be talking about cost and then materials, overhead, wholesale rate, and then retail rate. So the first 2 formulas that I really like are cost, which is your like hourly wage, plus your materials to make that actual item, and then a little bit of overhead, which it's like, it can be anything from like $2 to $3. Essentially, it's like a little gimme. It goes towards like your Etsy fees, etc. And then from there, you times it by 1.75 to get yourself a 75% markup, and that becomes your retail rate. The second one that I really like is cost plus materials times 2, and in other crafting situations, it's usually it's cost plus materials times 2, and then you times it by 2 again. And the one that I absolutely hate, and people like fight me on this, is materials times 3, because it is such an archaic and old method to be able to like price your stuff. It doesn't take any skill into account. It's ridiculous. But I'll talk about that one later. So the ones that I really like, so cost is like your hourly wage, so whether that's $10 an hour, and then from there you have your materials, which is what you need to spend to be able to make that item. So usually the example that I like to use is, say that you make a scarf and it takes 2 hours to be able to make. You charge yourself $10 an hour. That means that your hourly wage is $20. From there, say that it costs you $10 a ball, like for a ball of wool. You would take that $10 plus the $20 from your hourly wage, you slap them together, and then from there, that becomes your wholesale rate. So usually a wholesale rate is something that you would sell to a boutique, or that people would purchase in bulk. And a lot of people will get stuck on this and say, wait, can't I just sell at a wholesale rate at the half and just cover my costs and my materials? And my thing is, you're going to dig yourself a hole that people are going to expect those prices, and all of a sudden when you have all these other things amounting in your business that you need to pay for and you double that rate, your customer is going to be pissed. So don't sell at a wholesale rate. But then from there you times by 1.75, or you can times by 75%, and that should give you your profit margin. So I have a calculator here.
I love it. Old school calculator.
Yeah. So if you go 30 times 0.75, that means that your profit margin is going to be $22.50. And I think a lot of people really panic about that because they're like, well, why should I be adding that? And that goes towards so many other things in your business, like watching this live, learning for your business, answering emails, doing Etsy listings, doing photography, paying for props, paying for booths, paying for websites.
The list never ends.
Like, the list never ends. And that $22.50 gets eaten up really quickly. So I always like to say cost plus materials plus a few dollars for overhead, which usually ends up doing anything from like your gas, a little bit of mileage here and there. So normally for the scarves, you have $20 for your time, then you have $10 for your materials. We do a little bit for overhead, which is, let's say, $3. And then from there, that equals $33. That's your wholesale. That's like you have to make that money back. Otherwise, you are losing money. If you charge less than that, you've screwed the pooch. Like, you need to make that money back. And then from there, you times by 1.75, meaning that your retail rate, which is what you'd be putting on your Etsy, etc., would now be $57.75. Again, that's just using like a really easy, like $10 minimum wage. Chances are minimum wage is changing wherever you are. In Calgary, it's moving to like $13.95, which means that all of my prices are now going up.
In New Jersey, it's $8 and change. Yeah.
Shit.
It's fun.
So it's always good to be able to like take a look at what other people are doing as well, but also realize that some other people may be having the exact same issues in pricing and maybe undervaluing themselves as well.
So I have a question. How important do you think it is to pay yourself a fair hourly wage? Do you consider, like, do most people who use your pricing strategy, do they start with minimum wage and then possibly increase? Or do they say right out of the bat, like, hey, I want to make $20 an hour, and like, that's that?
I think that a lot of people start at the actual minimum wage because when you see that price tag of a scarf for $60, people panic. Yeah. And to me, like, $60 is a fucking steal. Like, I will, like, girl, give me that scarf. Give me, like, I'll pay like $95 for a stupid blanket scarf from Aritzia. Yeah. But there are people out there that will pay it. But I think it just comes down to, I think more people feel more comfortable even with minimum wage. And I think a lot of people still panic at minimum wage because they're like, oh, well, that price seems too high. And my thing is that price seems too high because that is what handmade is worth. Like, you're worth a minimum wage and you should be paying yourself that. For any other crafting, like one of my girlfriends, she does jewelry, and her method, which I talked about a little bit before, was material, so cost plus materials, so her hourly wage plus materials, and then from there she times it by 2, and then she times it by 2 again to be able to create her wholesale. So if, let's say that she's using something that, like, let's say it takes her a half an hour to be able to make something, which is pretty long for, she's like an assembly jewelry type of gal. Yeah. So let's say that she charges $10 an hour. That's $5 for her hourly wage. And then from there, maybe it's $5 in materials because she buys in bulk. That means that it's 10. So if she were to double that, it would only give her 20. And jewelry has a higher price point, and it's usually valued a lot higher. So she can take that and times it by 2 again to be able to get her next rate. Okay. Which means that she's still making way more profit. And that's the thing that pisses me off when it comes to knitting and crocheting, is because it takes so much more time and it's like so much less valued.
Yes. So I have a question. I've dabbled in this realm before, and while I have not sold handmade stuff myself, I was a pattern designer. Why do you think it's important to separate out the profit percentage from the hourly rate? So why are those separate, and why not just say, instead of, saying I get paid $10 an hour plus profit, I get paid $20 an hour and call it a day?
I think it comes down to is that when you're running a business, so technically when it comes to the law, is that if you are trying to make a profit, even on your hobby, as soon as you are trying to make a profit, and make any money, which I'm assuming that if you're just trying to cover your costs and make a little bit of money, you're technically qualified as a business and you have to do your taxes for it.
Yeah.
So, I lost my train of thought. Wait,
taxes will do that too.
Yeah. But when it comes to hourly rate versus profit margin, is because there's so many things as a business, and again, even if you're being a hobbyist, you're still technically a business. There's so many things that you're doing outside of your production time, which is like sitting down on the couch and knitting and crocheting or whatever you want to call it, that you are not actually putting into your hourly rate, whether that is setting up your website. I don't know about you, but WordPress is not exactly the easiest thing to use. Shopify isn't the easiest thing to do. Like, putting up listings alone on Etsy makes me want to rip my hair out. So it's like those things, and those are like just 3.
Yeah.
Those things take time. And just because you aren't in production mode, why would you not be paying yourself for those moments? Because those moments add up. I ended up doing an exercise, and I did a live on it, and it was the most terrifying live I've ever done, because we talked about, let's say that you do 5 hours of social media or just 5 hours of marketing a week, and to me that's like peanuts.
Yeah.
Like, that's like you scrolling on Instagram, that's you engaging with your audience, that's you answering emails, that's putting out email news blasts, that's writing a blog post to be able to put it out in an email news blast, that is like maybe putting up some Facebook stuff, or maybe talking to, like, there's a lot just in that 5 hours. And I don't know about you, but I sit and like pee and scroll on Instagram, and that takes like 20 minutes. So like,
this is true. Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff you're not accounting into. And we ended up doing, so in this experiment, I think we did like 5 hours of social media a week at $10 an hour. And then from there, you put your website fees, and then you put in a couple things of like what to actually manage your accounts, etc. Like putting up Etsy listings, anything that was associated with that.
Right.
I think it came out to like over $3,000 a year. And if you weren't, if you're not looking at your profit margin and going, okay, well, I'm just going to pay my hourly wage and then get my materials back, you've lost $3,000.
Wow.
In a year. And a lot of people go, okay, well, say that I have a scarf and it's $50 an hour, $3,000 divided by 50. They're like, oh, I only have to sell 60 scarves. And it's like, no, that's not the case, because you already, half of that dollar amount is your hourly wage. So say that you only have $5 of profit on there, that $3,000 divided by 5 means that you have to sell 600 scarves.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's interesting, because I've never heard it explained that way. And I do think that for a lot of yarnpreneurs, you know, at least the ones that I encounter in our group and other places, for a lot of them, this is a side hustle, you know, to use the current slang.
It's my side hustle. Like, I work full time. Like, I ain't got time. I ain't get time to give away $3,000.
Right. So the specifics of, and I think it gets away from people. I think unless you actually sit down and you do the calculations of how many hours and over the course of how much time all of that takes. And again, I think it's a case of we forget, right? We kind of forget that it happens and that those are things that we do. Some of us justify it by saying, well, that's, you know, part of running a business, but yes, you should still get paid for that.
Yes.
And I think some of us also are like, but I enjoy that part, you know, like I love scrolling through Instagram and seeing what, you know, like how should I shouldn't really be making money from something I enjoy. And I think that's one of the stigmas that I'd like to see kind of turned on its head. Yeah. Is like, well, yeah.
My thing is great. I know that you love it. Like, I am a complete social media junkie. Like, I am an addict. Like, I'm like, give me that hit. Yeah. Like, that's terrible. I don't know if there's no, like, recovering addicts in here. But honestly, I do believe, yes, it's super fun. I really enjoy it. But my thing is that I love social media. I love getting those, like, that engagement. I love talking to my target audience or my audience in general.
Yeah.
But that 15 minutes to be able to put up a post is time spent away from making dinner with my husband.
Yeah.
It is $10, 10 minutes not hanging out with my brand new puppy. Like, all those things start to add up, and all of a sudden that 15 minutes has now become half an hour after 2 days, and has now become 45 minutes after 3, and has now become an hour, or whatever you want. And 15 minutes is really small. So all of these things that we think that are just like associated with your business, you should be paying yourself for. And there's so many people out there that it drives me mental. People are like, oh, but I shouldn't be like charging this much because it's like a hobby. It's like a part-time thing. And it's like, if you are taking the time to work an 8-hour job during the day, come home, and then work more, aren't your hours more valuable than during the day? Because that's time with your family. That's time with your friends. That's time just watching Netflix and just like chilling out.
Yeah.
Like, we forget about those things really quickly.
Well, I love this. I was just checking in to see if there are any cues. But I do think it's really important for people to, and I think that's part of what I love about your stance, is that it's the formula, like, yes, that's all fine and good. And then there's the component of like, this matters. You are worth this. Your time is worth this. You are taking time away from your family and from other things that you could be doing. And yes, you enjoy what you're doing, but you still deserve to get paid for it. And I think I love that message.
Like my thing when people are like, oh, I shouldn't get an hourly wage for my craft. I'm like, a plumber gets an hourly wage. Like, an electrician gets an hourly wage. An executive secretary, who I am, oh god, that's a terrible title. I get paid an hourly wage. A lawyer gets paid an hourly wage, and you can better sure as shit he's racking that up. Like, but just because it's something that you enjoy, why would you not get an hourly wage and not be anything less? Because you're an artist.
I love it. So, my next question is, should everyone use this formula, or do you have different, I have two questions in this realm. Yeah. Do you think that it is different when people are starting out? Should they do anything differently when they're a new business as opposed to when they're established? I see you shaking your head now. And, how does the formula differ when we're talking about digital goods, things like patterns? How do you go about pricing, stuff like that? Because obviously that's a little different.
So one, I think that, I think these formulas are always a good bouncing point. I think that you should be using them from day one. Because my issue is that, because I've made those mistakes where I was like, oh, I don't really know how much to charge for that. I made like a scarf. It took me 8 hours. I charged $30 for my first scarves, which is like highway robbery. Yeah. That's like $3.50 an hour. I made these mistakes, and my issue is that it's so much harder for you to make your stance as you go and keep battling your customer, being like, it's more expensive now. It's more expensive now. It's more expensive now. Yeah. I have one customer. She has followed me from the very beginning. She's like one of my friend's moms. She is like one of the most loyal Knitatude customers. She's probably spent over I would say $3,000 on Knitatude alone. Like, wow. She's bought like blankets, and my first blanket was $375, and then it went up to $450, and then it went to $675, and she stuck with me the whole entire time. And finally, I priced her out. Wow. She was like, I can't purchase, I would love to purchase a garment from you, but I can't spend $800 to $900 on a sweater. And I was like, no, that completely makes sense. She understands why my price is that point. Right. But my thing is, start where you should be so you're not pissing off your customer. And I think that if you are going to be putting yourself up and immediately asking for that respect, it means that they're not going to step on you in the first place. It's stressful to be like, oh, but I'm brand new. And I think that another thing is that the reason why I always hear the cost plus or the materials times 3 is because there's so many people that I'm brand new. I'm learning how to knit. I'm taking a lot longer than I would if I was more skilled, which I'm like, no, I completely understand.
You're still taking the time.
You're still taking the time. You still need to pay yourself for that. And when you get faster and you start working on more product, like projects that are a lot more profitable for you, you can pocket that money. I always say that you should be taking a look at what the market is pricing themselves at, but that's just a thing. Like for Maker Strong, our big thing is like you fucking price correctly.
Yeah.
And then from there, everyone else goes onto Etsy and compares their price to you.
Yeah.
Not the person who's doing it at $30. You price it at you see the person and you're like, oh, I see someone selling something for $75, and I see someone selling it for $50. I'm going to go in the middle. Instead of it being like, I see someone on Etsy selling it for $43 and the bottom person is selling it for $17. Maybe I'll sell it for $27. I always say take a look at what your competition is doing, but also note that I think our industry is getting better now, but we have a lot of people that are still believing in materials times 3 because they're like, well, if I'm going to take so much longer in this, it's so much easier to just look at my materials and times that by 3. Well, that's great if you're using Red Heart yarn and say that you're doing like something that uses 3 balls. You're now telling me that you should be charging $12 for a scarf that took you like over 4 hours? And what about that poor person who's like, I'm going to do lace. I'm going to do lace with fingering weight.
Oh, God.
And it's like the yarn is now like, maybe it's a shitty like fingering weight. I don't know how expensive it would be, but like, I'm going to charge $22 for something that took you like hours upon hours upon hours.
Yeah.
But I always say use a formula, and it is a bouncing point. Like you don't have to stick to it. The reason why I say 75% of a markup is because that's like minimum. Like you try to not go anything less than that, because I also like to take, if you really want to figure out how much money you have to make, you can look at your whole entire year as a whole and say, okay, I have 12 months. This is how much money I need to make per month to be able to live. How many things do I need to make and sell with that profit margin, and break it down. So say that you need to make $100 a month. God, that would be nice. Say that your rent, your food, everything came to $100, and your profit margin was like $5 a scarf, which is still super low. Let's say $10 a scarf. That means that you now have to sell 10 scarves. So it's just, I don't know. You can take it from the outside and look in. Otherwise, you can take it from the inside and look out. But I always like to say hourly, because just have like a base rate on that, and make sure that you make a profit because you deserve it.
Yeah,
that profit is paying for other things in your business, and you're actually probably still not profiting with not enough profit margin.
Yeah, no, I love the word profit because I do think it should be separated from your hourly. Like, you make money for your time, and then as a business owner, you should be making profit. And I just want to take this moment to tell people about the book Profit First, because it is a book that I recently read, and actually, I know I messaged you about it. I know
you messaged me, and I was like, I need to read that.
But if you guys are interested in kind of looking more at it's a very businessy book. But he does have a very interesting perspective on, it's basically an envelope budgeting system on steroids, kind of. So he basically has you, but really focusing on profit. And the reason it's called Profit First is because whenever you get money in, you take your profit first, and he physically has you separate it in a separate bank account.
That's brilliant.
So I've found it very interesting. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there and see if anybody else, was interested, they can certainly check that out. I
didn't answer your second question.
Oh yeah, because I was going to say, because Novella also asked, how do you price your patterns? So I think that'd be a good thing to touch on.
So digital is like a brand new ball game for me. I first started, my first thing was that I started looking at all of the patterns on Ravelry and on Etsy to try and get an idea. And to my thing, it's always such a piss off. Patterns seem to be mainly based between anything from $3, which I think is bullshit. Let's say $5 to $11. And $11 is like on the kind of top side for me, because that's usually like the Drea knits, the Andrea Mowry's that are like fingering weight, beautiful raglans, crazy intricate detail. And my thing was that I first started selling all of my patterns at $7.25 Canadian, which I think comes out to like $5.63 American. But I started because I kind of wanted to go in the middle, because I was like, well, this is something that I'm enjoying. I think that I'll actually start doing this more often. In January, I actually hiked my prices.
Okay.
So instead of being $7.25, I'm now $9.25. And the reason why I ended up giving that to myself, I was like, how is it possible that I'm selling a hat pattern, which is one size? I don't need to worry about it. It's just like you cast on, you dick around, and then you make a thing. But then when it came to making garments, it's like you are having to make your first item, which is a lot larger and a lot longer, and then from there you're having to grade it for multiple sizes. And the amount of people that berate me still for not having enough sizes is like I get like shamed, shamed. And I make anything from small to extra large. I was like, how is it possible that I am doing about, well, small, medium, large, extra large, like anything from 4 to 5 times the work, and I'm only getting paid the exact same amount.
Right.
So I wish that there was more of a formula for when it comes to actually doing patterns. I wish that I could find that magical formula, but my main thing is take a look at the people that are around you, and see what they're charging. And if you have a more intricate pattern, don't be terrified to be able to make that more expensive. That's way more work on you.
Yeah.
Like, way more work.
Have you found that you see crochet patterns are consistently priced less expensive than knit patterns? It's a thing. And it's,
I don't know. Maybe, because I don't actually crochet, so I have no idea. I never actually look for crochet patterns, but that's insane.
It is. It's a very interesting, the crochet market in general has way more free patterns, and the pattern prices are a lot. I don't think I've ever seen an $11 crochet pattern, ever. Like even from top names. It's usually anywhere from 2 to maybe 7. Like,
see, that's crazy, because like my
4 or
thing
5
is
average.
I ended up I had to laugh because I was like, oh, I'm going to try and find when I hit my 20K for Instagram, I was like, I'm going to get 20 designers, I'm going to get all of their patterns, and like, we'll do a huge giveaway.
Yeah.
And my thing was that I wanted to mainly do a bunch of garments because I make garments.
Right.
And I started realizing how many people out there actually crochet garments than knit. Unless you're going like super like fingering weight and like beautiful like tegnas and like find your fade shawls.
Yes. Yeah.
And it was, I don't know, it was kind of crazy to be like, oh, there's actually a lot more crocheters that are making garments than knitters.
It's getting bigger. It's the market is getting bigger, and I think it's due to all of the crochet designers that are bringing the more modern designs, and are kind of finding ways to make, because crochet does not, I mean, at the end of the day, it's harder to get the fabric to drape the way knitwear does. But there are a lot of designers who are doing some really awesome things in the garment space. Inside Crochet has always been one of my favorite places to look for crochet garments, because they just do a really good job of finding designers that do amazing things with garments. But yeah, I think crochet is getting there. Crochet always seems to kind of lag behind.
Yeah, it's always like the second, like the ugly stepsister.
Right.
Which is so sad.
Yes. Because it's very, I've always seen them as two crafts that I love equally, but that they lend themselves to different things. There are certain things that I would never crochet, and there are certain things that I would never knit.
I'm also really curious to see if maybe the reason why crochet patterns are not as expensive is because no matter when you, like, even crochet items are always called knitwear. Like, they're, like, knitwear is like the forefront.
Right.
And I think that maybe it's like trying to get its time in the sun, but it's just like not there. I'm curious if that may actually have a point, because I actually had never heard that crochet patterns were cheaper.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that go into it. I think, when a lot of people think crochet, their mind immediately goes to granny squares, and that's all they know. Yeah. And then they think, just, if it's not a granny square, it's knit. Like, those are your options.
There's no in between.
Like, that's all there is. So I definitely think there's a lot of perceptions that people have around what crochet is and what it's capable of. And I think there are a lot of amazing designers. One comes to mind. I used to work with Lee from Coco Crochet, and she does amazing things with crochet that very modern, very fun, like very cool. And like she's made garments and sweaters and stuff that I would totally crochet and wear. And that's kind of like, those are the people that we need. And I think we're getting to that point where more and more of those people are sharing their talents, and it's totally, it's getting out there. We'll get there.
Yeah, it's like hard enough to get knit out of there, let alone like come in.
Yeah, well, hopefully crochet can piggyback, and we'll all just kind of.
I think she is.
We'll all just get in that realm together. Okay, so we totally got off on a tangent there, but that's all. It's okay. I like it. Okay, so last question. How would you recommend someone update their prices if they want to use this formula? Maybe they've, been pricing their work for a while. They're kind of an established business. How do they kind of make the transition from however they're pricing their work now to using something that will get them paid, and make them some moolah?
Do it now.
Well, that's easy.
like my thing is, especially because right now, we're in like a lull. Like we obviously have a very seasonal product.
Yes.
My thing is that it is going to be so much easier to just be able to like, bam, here's my fall line, bam, here's my new prices, and have that ready and set.
Yeah.
Because trying to like, I always say, if you feel really nervous about your prices, always jump by 5. Like jump by $5. Okay. But my thing is that a lot of people, which we got really lucky because when we first started Maker Strong, it was right in craft fair season, and a bunch of people immediately flipped their prices and they started making bank.
Yeah.
But I think that if we would have started talking about that around this time of year, especially with not as many craft fairs, not as many people are doing like crochet tops or anything like that, it's very hard to be like, oh, well, I upped my prices and I went to a market. Now what do I do because no one bought anything? And it's like, well, did no one buy anything because it was 32 degrees out, like really stinking hot? Or was it because of your prices? So my thing is, take a look at what your prices are going to be or what they should be. And then from there, fall, those prices go up.
Love it.
Because we're all on the same same page. You're already probably making for craft fairs automatically. Start sticking those prices on those stickers. Just do it.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, I'm not seeing a lot of questions come through, which must mean that you're explaining yourself really well. So let's see. We had a few comments. Novella said, your hard work isn't up for haggling. I like that.
Yes. And I've also, there's a girl that, I think her name is Pam. She sent me a message and she was like, cheap prices attract cheap customers. Because if you were selling to the Walmart crowd, you're never going to get out of Walmart prices. If you're selling to the Louis Vuitton crowd, that's where it's at.
I always say that you should try to get to the point where people are coveting your work, right? Yeah. Where they're like, I'm saving up so I can get this scarf, or I'm saving up, like I'm so excited to get this thing, and no, I can't get it right now, but I know it's worth it, so I'm going to save up, and then when I can, it's going to be like this big celebration because I can finally buy this thing that I've wanted. And
that's a good point as well, that even if you're having it where, so I always like to say that you're working smarter, not harder. So if you have a $50 scarf and a $100 scarf, if they're the exact same scarf, you only have to sell one $100 scarf versus two of the 50 to be able to make that money. And also note that just because your prices hike, which I know that people panic as soon as this happens because sales do have a tendency, sales either skyrocket. It's crazy. Some people have it
perceived value,
perceived value, yeah. As soon as people are like, oh, that's $70, that's $70, I gotta have that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, people have their sales start to trickle in, not as often. And it's also, don't forget that, as you said, people are now starting to save up for your stuff, and that is okay. That's what you want.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point too. I also like to encourage people to make sure that they're backing up their pricing with quality and professionalism and good pictures and good graphics and all that stuff, because all of that goes into the perceived value of your product. And people are going to make those split-second decisions based on, your photography and,
Yes.
especially when you're selling online, you have to present the product in a way that's not only appealing, but, shows off your talent and your skills so that people do understand, yes, this is a really, like, they feel comfortable spending that
Yes.
money because it doesn't look like it might be okay. It might be worth what you're charging, but I'm not really sure because it's kind of dim lighting and I can't see it very well.
Raise your prices, raise the bar.
Yes. I love it. Awesome.
Yeah.
So let me read out a few. We have my friend Selena checked in. Hey, Selena. Hey, Dawn. Dawn says, I've had some pay installments while I make their items because my prices can be higher, especially for an Afghan. Yeah, that's a great way to deal with that as well.
Yes, and I always say make sure that you're getting at least half that payment up front.
Yeah.
Always payment up front. And you were mentioning about perceived value. I think that's a really good point as well. I think people really panic and go, how can I charge something like that? But there's actual studies that say that if you have two identical erasers and one of them is 50 cents and one of them is 150. One of them is 50 cents and one of them is $1.50. People will actually purchase the $1.50 one more often because they think that it's a better quality eraser.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think that there's certainly some psychology that goes into what people see, and especially online when we're kind of conditioned to scroll and make split-second decisions and kind of form opinions and either attach ourselves to brands or whatever based on the photographs and the messaging and all of those things. Is very important to take all of that into account. I totally agree.
Which is where your profit margin is going, because it's going towards
all that time on social,
and marketing and making sure that your site looks professional.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I had a fantastic time. I hope our audience enjoyed the time as well. You can find Chantal. I put Amanda put her link in the event. I didn't do it. I can't take the credit for it. Amanda did it. Amanda put the link in the event. So if you want to find her at Knitatude, and I know you're also over at Maker Strong and the YYC Girl Gang.
YYC Girl Gang, yeah.
Yes.
I am El Presidente.
Nice.
It makes me feel really popular, but we're all the exact same, we're all the exact same level.
Awesome. Well, Courtney says thank you. All right, awesome. I'm going to sign off. If you're watching the replay, add your hashtag replay so that we can say hi to you as well. I hope you have enjoyed this discussion, and we will see you soon for another expert Q&A. Thank you so much again for coming on. I really had
I'm so glad.
Awesome. All right. Bye, guys. Have a great night.